One thing that I've been wanting to talk about a lot is refresh rate, because I'm not anti high refresh screen. I am recategorize how big of a priority the high refresh rate screen is on like this budget list of like things that we can make.
Right.
So we've talked about this quite a bit. Right? We've never had like a full in-depth conversation about this subject specifically, but you and I have talked about this like quite a bit. We actually had a little litmus test experiment last night.
We did, yep.
And I guess let's just start talking about the high refresh rate. Let's start talking about like your love for it, my dislike for it, or...
So, I mean, I'm not super passionate about it either, but I have noticed that it does make the experience feel a little bit snappier. It gives me the illusion that the phone is faster, which I know it's not, but it just feels that way.
Well, actually, no, you and I talked about this. It actually makes your phone marginally faster because it's got a higher polling rate for the screen. And for those that are unfamiliar, what that actually means is if you have, and this is how it is with most Android phones, iPhone does it differently, and we'll talk about that. But specifically what we're talking about is when you're touching the screen of your phone, the digitizer that's reading your fingerprint is reading it 60 times per second. And on the Android side of things, when you get a 90 hertz refresh rate, the screen polling goes in conjunction with that, or when you have 120 hertz display, it obviously like goes along with that as well. And the advantage to that is that your phone is actually reacting in a more immediate manner to your touch input, right? It's only fractionally or marginally factor, but we're talking about a intangible metric here, right? Of like how the device like feels.
Right. So yeah, it's hard to put your finger on it, but the overall experience to me is that I feel like the phone is faster and more responsive. It just feels snappier, I wonder if I might have been just biased thought about that, but we had a test yesterday where we had a friend of mine who's never used either of our phones hold the K20 Pro beside the X2 Pro. And scroll around, and we just asked her, knowing nothing else about the phone, which of these do you prefer? And she said the X2 Pro she felt was a little bit faster.
Yeah, she she said there was no difference, but which one would you buy? And she said the X Pro 2. And when we asked her specifically why, it just felt
quicker.
Yeah, it felt a little quicker.
And that's the impression I get too. It just feels a bit snappier. It's hard to pinpoint it more than that. It just feels that way. And part of that factor of snappiness is the processor, parts of the software. But I've been noticing when I compare higher refresh rate devices to lower refresh ones, the higher refresh rate devices tend to feel snappier to me, to the point that now I think going forward, if I were to buy another phone, I would specifically look for something with a 90 or 120 hertz refresh rate.
Okay, so my take on it is that I think the technology in and of itself is great. I think that it's awesome that we're pushing it that way, right? But when we're talking about devices specifically in like the non-premium segment, right? We're talking about compromises that must be made, right? I'm someone that uses my phone outside, like relatively frequently. If I fly a drone, I need to use my phone as like a display for that, right? So seeing it in like outdoors is like pretty vitally important when like I'm flying $1,000 drone like over people,
right?
Potentially, right? So like having the like, for me, if we're talking about the compromises that need to be made for a device that's at the $450 mark, let's say, or the $500 mark. The high refresh rate for me, which isn't actually increasing the performance of the device, I can't necessarily place that higher, because to me that's like, it's just as superfluous of an option as like choosing to have stainless steel for the chassis instead of aluminum.
Right.
Right? Where it's like, it's a non-tangible benefit that you're getting, but you're having to compromise something. The most recent example I can make of this is if we talk about the Redmi K30 Pro 5G or the K30 5G, where they decide to use a 430 nit LCD display with a punch hole because it was the only 120 hertz display with a punch hole that they could source at this time. To give you an idea, my phone at max brightness gets over 600 nits for outdoor visibility.
So I guess this is very much a personal matter then, because I don't particularly care about screen brightness. Actually, I tend to keep my screen brightness fairly low, and that's not a battery decision. Actually, I just kind of prefer a darker screen. I haven't had I've never had an experience with the phone where I felt like the screen doesn't get bright enough outside. That doesn't really seem to be an issue for me. So screen brightness isn't big for me. Cameras aren't big for me. I mean, this thing's got 4 goddamn rear-facing cameras and a front-facing. I think I've used, besides the main rear-facing camera, I've used the other 3 maybe once or twice. So
really?
Ever. So I really take advantage of extra cameras. I really take advantage of high screen brightness. What matters to me, what I want to pay for, is a snappy experience. I want to feel like everything is going quickly and there's no lag. So to that end, the most important things to me are the software, the processor,
and the storage speed too.
And now the refresh rate is become important to me. And I will pay, at this point, I think I will just pay the lowest amount of money I can for a device that checks all those boxes.
Okay. What about, because we talked again about yesterday, because that's just obviously is a personal preference. It's not like there's no way that to like necessarily quantify that as like a smart choice or a not smart choice, right? We talked yesterday about how the newer iPhones are doing it with the higher polling rates, like 120 hertz refresh rate for your input, but the actual screen is like still a 60 hertz display. And have you gotten to play with the new iPhones at all?
I haven't. I've seen them, but I haven't played with one.
Because those, like everything that's smooth on Android, it just feels like it cannot compete. Like, and like I think that like as much as like I dislike Apple, I think it's totally possible, because for me, like the whole like scrolling experience, because the thing that people say is like when you scroll, stuff looks less like
looks like it's jumping less. It looks less leggy on the scroll, right? You're seeing more of what you're scrolling past.
But like I've never cared what I'm scrolling past, because I'm scrolling past it. And like playing video games, like PUBG still isn't rendered over 60 hertz.
I almost never game on my phone either. Right.
So it's like really the only time that you're actually noticing that's in screen animations and stuff like that.
Yeah, I bet you if there was an Android phone release that had a 60 hertz screen refresh rate, about 120 hertz polling rate, I would probably enjoy that experience more. Yeah. So all I'm really looking for is how smooth and snappy the experience feels. I don't particularly care about the scrolling or anything either. It's mostly, it really just comes down like to typing swiftly and the overall feel of moving around the phone.
Yeah. So I like this is because like every kind of like generational, like with smartphones, we see like fads come in and fads go out, right? And like most recently, it was like the motorized camera was like the big thing for like Q1, Q2 last year was like a full screen display with no notch, blah, blah, blah.
I gotta say, I like that too. I like the look of the full screen display.
Well, see, that's something that the K20
I don't want to have a motorized camera.
See, and that's something like something that people have consistently killed me over on my YouTube channel is my idea that a water drop notch, the way it is on the X Pro 2, the way it is on the Xiaomi Mi Note 10 Pro, is somehow interruptive into like the smartphone experience.
So notches bug some people more than others. They don't really bother me. I think like the teardrop is my favorite implementation. I find it's very non-invasive, but the camera is right there. You don't have to wait for it to deploy.
Right.
And I don't take a lot of pictures. I don't take a lot of selfies either. But one of the things I do particularly like on this phone is just how snappy the face unlock is. It's instantaneous. I mean, I can't determine any lag on it at all, and it's very consistent. And the implementation for the face unlock on this device is less secure. I'm aware. I don't really care about that. I don't keep a lot of sensitive stuff on my phone. I'm not expecting anyone to try and hack into it.
Right.
So if security was more of an issue to you, then you would probably want something with the IR face unlock and all that. But me not needing that, I just want my phone to be unlocked by the time I'm looking at it, which with this implementation it has. So that's now an important thing for me too. I don't want to wait for a motorized camera to pop up and look at me to unlock my phone.
And at the same time, we're also now having like the cutout in the display. And the thing that I don't understand as being different functionally is like the reason that we're calling it a cutout as opposed to a notch is that there's like a few lines of pixels in between like the camera cutout.
If anything, I find that stands out more. That seems more distracting to me than a teardrop. The teardrop kind of blends in with the frame, the bezel.
Right. Well, so like my argument with this has been interruption into my interaction with the device, right? And when I say interruption, I mean like things such as my notifications at the top, such as my I guess the stuff on the right, which would be like batteries, signal strength.
I mean, as you can see with the notch implementation, right? I mean, your notification stuff comes along the sides of it anyways, and the notch is along where the black system status bar would be anyways.
And like, there's no interruption of it. And I've tested this before, where like I had the Mi 9, and I had this phone, and I tested the number of how many notifications am I giving, like notification icons am I giving up for the notch? And I think it was like 2.
Yeah, I've never
3, and I had like 6 already on one side, and then it would have just gone to like 8. So it's like, and then also in regards to video, right now the majority of video that people consume is 16:9 content. I'm shooting this video in 16:9 content. Cell phones are getting longer than 16:9, and we're going from now cutting off like, a half circle to like literally cutting off like the top and bottom of the frame. Like if we take this video and like do the pinch to zoom, actually everyone who's using a non 16:9 display phone right now, being almost everybody, pinch to zoom this and see how much you're cutting off, because I have this framed up right now so that like our heads are essentially like pretty close to the top of the frame, right? Our torsos are, but then if like you pinch to zoom it might just cut us down to like eyeballs and like tits, right? Like that's so. I think like to me when we talk about interruptions to the when we talk about interruptions to like the experience, for me having to shift all those notifications over to one side is like an interruption to my experience using the device.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a totally dismissible interruption next to the interruption of having to wait an extra half a second for a motorized camera.
Right, exactly.
That will actually add up to a measurable amount of time, right? Like,
it
over
does.
the course of the lifetime of my phone, I lost a whole minute on waiting for this camera to pop up.
Right, right, and it's
a
like
whole minute of my life.
And it's like I haven't had any problems, like necessarily like with the camera, right? But like, and like the drop protection is like nice, right? But like, at the end of the day, I went to Malaysia with my ex-girlfriend, and like I was hesitant to take selfies because we were at the beach and there's like sand.
Right. So I think some of that fad came from the notoriety of it. Anything that's, for example, I would really like to get the new Motorola Razr. Because even though it doesn't have the top processor, because it just looks so fucking cool, right? Like, it's novelty. Everyone's gonna turn their heads, and you've got a very different phone.
Right.
I think that was the case with the motorized cameras, especially, and I can't remember which one it was, but
the
one of them
Oppo
had,
Reno Ace that had like the full shark fin that came up.
No, I'm thinking of the one where the rear-facing camera was also the front-facing. It would actually flip around.
Oh, the Asus Zenfone 6Z or whatever.
Yeah,
the
might have been that.
Yeah. Talking about like the utilization of phones and stuff like that, and talking about kind of the implementation of tech and hardware, right? I think the one thing that you and I kind of both take away from this is that all of these different things that are kind of trickling down into like the budget, medium tier smartphones, it feels like. To end users, we use our phones in very different ways. But like at the end of the day, I would say the one commonality between it is that like the end functionality is something that we both seem to care a lot about. Like,
right.
Like with how functions go. Really quick, as we're wrapping up, can you give me what is one either fad or one thing you see coming on the horizon with smartphone tech that you are looking forward to, and one thing that you are not looking forward to?
Okay. So I'm excited for foldable phones. I like notoriety. I like things that are different. Mm-hmm. All of the implementations I've seen, except for the Motorola Razr so far, have looked awful. Yeah, having a space in with the fold or something like that. All the whole like shit show with the Samsung. I wasn't excited for it until the Motorola Razr. That looks super cool. I would love to get one of those. I almost certainly will. I'll end up splurging for that phone more than I have in a long time.
Okay, and one thing that you're not looking forward to?
The price point associated with it. I'm gonna feel like such a sucker spending an extra like $500 because my phone folds. Like that's the thing that I make fun of my friends who buy iPhones for. Is I tell them like, you spent twice as much so you can have an aluminum frame and an Apple stamp on the back.
Stainless steel.
I'm gonna be that.
It's
person.
Stainless steel.
Yeah, the stainless steel. Yeah, well, all the same. I'm gonna be one of those suckers now.
Okay, so I think mine to wrap this up. You're gonna hate this because I think that the trend that I am not looking. Actually, I have like 3 trends that I'm not necessarily looking forward to, and that's gonna make me seem really negative. One is foldable phones. Although I like the clamshell folding thing of having like a physically smaller phone, I like that idea, especially as a communication device. But like the whole like semi-half tablet to like I just think that I don't see the ad functionality for that.
Right.
The second thing I'm not looking forward to is under display front-facing cameras. Mm-hmm. For anyone that wants to know why, if you look up the old Sony Alpha Series cameras, which utilized a translucent mirror, and ultimately those failed because you're eliminating light from an already small sense. Like, it's just not going to be an effective camera solution, in my opinion, in the near time future. Those are 2 trends I'm really not that happy about. I guess the trend I am happy about is like ultra fast charging, as long as like battery health isn't affected.
Yep.
Okay, cool. We're gonna wrap this up. I think this is going to go out as a podcast, and I'll have it on like the podcast links, as well as cutting it up into shorter videos for you guys. Until next time, thanks. Oh, and let me know if you want more of these videos in the future.